Uh, Going back, I would like to go back or take where Joe left when he mentioned the product that we are expecting from the education system, and really go back to the early years of life when the brain is developing, when even from the womb, stimulus, positive stimulus and attention provided by mothers and by other relevant adults and parents and educators is crucial for the development of these sensory pathways, for the development of the brain that will later pay off when society invests in higher education. It was believed until recent years that the brain was developed when human beings were born, fully developed, and research has demonstrated that during the first years of childhood, particularly from 0 to 3 years of age, there is an incredible increase in the connections between the billions of neurons that human beings have. This is something that has to be done in a correct way. If, on the other hand, stimulus and experience is negative, we will have a lot of costs. We'll have to face a lot of costs trying to correct and badly, if I can use the expression, a badly wired brain in the individual. So we will not have those outcomes in terms of productive individuals, peaceful and productive citizens, productive workers. So this actions that have to be carried out by adults, teachers, in the early years of life are crucial for the development of these abilities. Research has shown that cognitive skills, learning languages, math, and writing, psychological or emotional characteristics, and also physical characteristics are enhanced if early child development is done in a correct way. And these outcomes are also tied, as I said before, to the returns that can be obtained by a society when society invests in secondary education, in job training, and other thank you, and other forms of education. The case for early child development from the economic point of view was highlighted, was put up in a very strong way by James Heckman, a Nobel Prize winner of economics in the year 2000. Heckman highlights that there is ample evidence, researchers from different fields, psychology, economics, that proves that these investments raise economic productivity and also have the potential to reduce inequality among children and families. The accident of birth is, in the United States, in Colombia, in different countries of the world, probably the main cause of inequality. And it takes place in a context where both the microenvironment, that is the family, the adults that are close to or surrounding the child as the boy or girl grows up and develops during these first years, but also the macro context, what's going on in the country, what policies are there for early child development, what type of investments does the country engage in to promote early child development, also affect and can alter the disparities and the inequalities that are there when children are born. These outcomes in terms of cognitive development, psychological development, and physical development are interrelated. And this requires that investments in early child development include investments in different sectors. This requires a multi-sector approach. This is not only an academic problem, this is not only an economic problem. It requires careful monitoring of health, of growth, teaching and training adults, investments in infrastructure, for example. We have found out that when preschools have annexes or infrastructure that exposes young kids to nature, to the elements, their brain development is greater than schools, preschools, or institutions where there is only cement and bricks. This type of stimulation is very important also, and it has been underestimated for years when governments build infrastructure for the care of children. There are impacts for policy there are impacts and policy implications for governments that want to develop early child programs. The first one is they have to start early. If governments start investing early, they will reap, society will reap higher benefits than if they try to correct for imbalances in children, and particularly in disadvantaged children and families later on. This also implies that investing early has a lower moral hazard than trying to compensate in later years through taxes or through subsidies or direct transfers of cash. It is also important to invest in the most disadvantaged, and in the poorest families. That's where the equality effect is going to show up in a larger way. And when we have worked with governments in the Latin American and Caribbean region, trying to stimulate the adoption and the design and implementation of early child development programs. And the lessons that we have learned in Latin America and the Caribbean at least imply or have shown us that this has to become a policy, a major policy. This cannot be a program that can be developed 4 years or 3 years and then abandoned. This has to become part of the National Development Plan. And parents in the implementation of these programs are very, very important, are crucial. The participation of parents and community is crucial in these cases. As I mentioned before, this requires a multi-sector approach with investments in health, medicine, education, training, infrastructure. And one of the main challenges in these programs in the different countries where we have had experience is to closely monitor, to keep score, to account for costs so that the new programs are designed on the basis of experience, of lessons learned, and of cost effectiveness. Finally, I think that one of the key recommendations for policymakers is to involve the private sector, and this was something that Angel was mentioning. There are opportunities for the private sector to become involved in early child development in a profitable way as well. This is not only a public problem. This is not only a public sector problem. The corporate sector has a lot to provide in terms of new developments, new technologies, games. Games are very important at this stage of life, and traditional games with wooden blocks and things like that are as important as electronic games to promote the development of these sensory pathways and the development of brain for creativity in children. So these are like the main recommendations that and implications for policymakers. And this shows that in the case of early child development, all society has to gain, and it's important to start early.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.